Okay, so from the get-go, I just want to point out that it's likely and perhaps possible that this video and some of the contents might be offensive or challenging to some people. And I want to point out that this video isn't an attack on anyone, it's not putting anything down, it's not doing anything of that sort, and it really doesn't have to have anything to do at all with religion or with spirituality, anything like that. What we're talking about could apply to a dietary thing, an exercise thing, a philosophical system, a religious system, a spiritual system, a social group, whatever. Because it's all really getting back to and dealing with the human mind and looking for ways that maybe we can adopt points of view and thoughts and beliefs that are a little more harmonious and maybe give us more freedom, give us more of a sense of enlightenment. Meaning in the sense that feeling lighter, feeling better, feeling happier, feeling more at ease. Which I think is a pretty universal thing that most of us would really like more of. And this is really not about putting anyone down or saying anyone is good or bad, right or wrong. It's just really understanding that, yeah, we're all human, we're all going through things, we're all working through things, we're adding things, we're subtracting things, just kind of the nature of the game that we're embedded within. And how can we maybe have more freedom, have more ease and comfort in the whole process. To illustrate what we're talking about here, let's use a quote from the Tao Te Ching, which says basically that superior virtue is unaware of itself. Inferior virtue is so attached to being virtuous, so hung up on being virtuous and making sure that everyone knows that it's virtuous, that it can't actually be virtuous. And this is really illustrating two modes of thinking, two modes of being. On one hand, we have being, actually feeling something and feeling and living out of that state. And then we have more of the other side of doing or striving or forcing. And we can understand this in a simple, easy, clear way. When we understand that when a shoe or a piece of clothing is really comfortable, odds are we don't really notice it. Once we put it on, once it's there, we kind of just forget about it and we kind of just move on. And it's only when that thing becomes uncomfortable or it's not really that harmonious or that really fitting that we start to notice it and notice that it's, something's off here, I need to change it, need to fix it. Likewise, when our body works effectively and easily, we don't really notice it. It's only when we start to have problems do we notice it. You know, we don't really typically notice the functions of our digestive system until something goes wrong. We don't really notice the functioning of our ears or our eyes until something goes wrong. We don't notice how easily we can breathe through our nose until we really get clogged up or something starts to go wrong there. So in the same way, we can understand both sides of this example. And understand that it's only when that something is working improperly that we really even start to notice it or start to become aware of it, which is indicative, meaning if something is really starting to register in our consciousness and we're having to think about it and talk about it and really identify with it on a deep, deep level, maybe something's off there. Maybe it's a similar thing as getting in the way of the natural functioning of our body. Whether that's a digestive function, a sexual function, a mental function, we start to get nervous or anxious or try to control that natural thing, which inherently gets in the way of the expression, gets in the way of the proper functioning of that thing. Like, you know, there's people that get nervous about, oh, can I digest that? Am I going to be able to go to the bathroom at this time? Am I going to be able to go to the bathroom at this time? What happens if this happens? Am I going to be able to perform this? Am I going to be able to perform that? What if I don't remember of everything? What if I don't see everything? And all of these things start to consume the energy, consume the focus of the mind, which then starts to really get in the way of the natural functioning of whatever that thing might be. So hopefully you're following me here as we're really building up this point of view. And how this relates to faith and people of faith and organizations of faith is in a really simple and easy way, which we'll use a couple different examples to see how all of this relates in such an obvious way. And if we look at just simple history, if we just take a simple look back at human history, whether it's political or social or whatever, and notice that most of the proponents of control, and of restriction and restraint were people, quote, of faith, or followers or devotees of some sort of religion. We'll notice that most of the people that are out in the world trying to recruit or convince other people to come to their side are, again, people of, quote, faith or people of religious lore or whatever. And we'll notice that the vast majority of people that are on TV or in media or in culture or out in the world judging other people or condemning other people or labeling people as sinners and people as impure, again, it's people of faith. And we might also look at how easily someone is in this category, how easily they might be offended by a conversation or by a person and really go on the defensive. And oftentimes what happens is people get into this like box and they only relate to people of that box and they really get rid of everything else because it's impure or it's evil or it's whatever. Now keep in mind, this whole thing about faith doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with being a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Hindu or anything. It could be a diet, it could be an exercise program, it could really be any sort of thing or any sort of niche or genre that we're identifying with and really, really investing ourselves in. So next, we can ask, okay, well, if this person is so easily offended, so easily going on the defensive, so likely to want to control and constrain other people, so motivated to want to sort of convince and recruit other people, might that actually just be based on insecurity? And meaning, if a person is really, really secure, why would they really care what other people do? Why would they really care what other people say? Why would they even waste the time and energy and really even notice it? Because if they're really secure in that, then they're probably going to be in this place of being. They're going to be in this thing and they're going to be unaware of it, so they don't have to think about it, they don't have to worry about it, they don't have to go out and convince and make sure everyone knows or make sure everyone behaves or make sure everyone's converted. Because if all of these things are happening, how can we really call faith, faith? Because all of the examples that we've gone through so far demonstrate an inherent lack of faith, an inherent lack of trust, an inherent lack of love. Because all of these things are really based on freedom. And all of these examples are really on the exact opposite of that. And really illustrate the need or the motivation to want to control everything, control other people, and a real inability to let go and relax. And we can understand and really easily observe that most of the time this sense of control is really done out of fear, which again doesn't have much to do with faith, trust, or love. And usually what people are calling faith manifests as telling this higher power what to do through prayer or conviction or some behavior or some sort of routine or plan or program or dogma. So that's their prayer and conviction. They're hoping that the higher power will give them what they want and do what they want. And they're, while simultaneously trying to control themselves and control the people around them and control the world at large. And really, again, both of which are based on a real lack of faith and trust. They're based on doing, forcing, striving, controlling, not really based on being. And we can go back to our first example and look at, okay, well, when a shoe really fits, when clothes really fit, we don't really notice them. When our body really works as it is designed, as it should, we don't really notice it. So we can see how these examples relate. And we can see that this translates over to the quote earlier from the Tao Te Ching, which says, superior virtue, unaware of itself. Inferior virtue, so caught up, so hung up on, so invested in being virtuous, that it is not virtuous, that it can't be virtuous, because it's too consumed by this thing. And on a visual level, we can say that maybe this state of being, maybe this feeling state, is, maybe down in here. It's in the gut, it's in the belly, it's in the heart. So that's here it is. It's here. But let's say this conversation and this need to control and the fear and trying to recruit and control everyone, that's really up here. And what happens is, the more we start to focus on up here, the more we start to focus on up here and talk about it and give it attention and give it focus, the less we really put on down here, which might actually be the real thing. And it's kind of like if you're in a relationship with someone and you're having all this conversation about commitment and trust, it's probably indicative that something is off. It's probably indicative that somewhere on in that relationship that those two things are probably not there, or they're missing, or they're being challenged or undermined in some way. Because again, if they were actually there, you really wouldn't have to spend much time thinking about it, because you would just be being out of it. You wouldn't have to worry about it. Much in the same way, when your eyes work, you don't have to think about it, you don't have to worry about it. They just work and you see, because it's just a natural process. So again, this applies to many different facets, many different arenas. It's not just a religious thing or an anti-religious thing. It has nothing to do with that. So, and then we might ask ourselves a different question, take this a little bit deeper. And people say, well, what about being a good person? What about being a better person? Because oftentimes people adopt these different things as kind of a self-improvement project. Well, what's implicit there in the train of thought that is going on there is that at the core, you're a bad person. At the core, you're not okay. And in and of yourself, you're not okay, you're not right. You need to be fixed because you're broken. Which oftentimes breeds a life script or a paradigm or a self-identity or whatever that's based on inadequacy and insecurity. Which is actually quite convenient and quite profitable, because oftentimes different organizations, whether they be religious or philosophical or whatever, sort of invent problems and then simultaneously invent solutions all at the same time. Meaning maybe that problem didn't really exist before, but they start telling you that it exists and using fear and using all these motivating techniques to engage your reptilian brain and to put your body on stress. And then that sort of diminishes your critical capabilities. And then you think, oh, well, yeah, maybe that is true. Maybe I do need this thing. And then, boom. And it's just kind of funny because that's the oldest marketing trick in the book. Read any marketing book, read any sales book, read any persuasion advertising book, and it's the same formula over and over and over. Because the human brain has been functioning in much the same way for a while now, and people figured this out. People figured out this is how you get people to do things, this is how you motivate people, this is how you sort of herd them in and get them to go in a certain direction by accessing the brain in a certain way, which diminishes certain things in the brain and just really shifts behavior. But we could ask ourselves, well, what if you're brought up in a culture that sort of ingrains this within you at such a young age that you never even really realize it until who knows when, if ever. And you never know anything different, meaning as soon as you're born, boom, you're given it, so you don't have that real ability to say, oh, maybe there's something different. Maybe I can compare this to another feeling state. Because no, as soon as we're born, perhaps this gaping hole was created. This problem was created. And then all of a sudden, conveniently, there's a ton of solutions that are offered to us. Which again could be religious, it could be social, it could be political, it could be economic, it could be a diet thing, a health thing, whatever. It could be a myriad of different ways. But we can understand from this video and from the different examples and illustrations that I've used, that at the core, it's very likely that these are all dealing with the same issues. Meaning it's dealing with the human mind, it's dealing with our perception of things, and it's dealing with how maybe we've been conditioned to view the world and view ourselves. Because again, the whole conversation has nothing to do with I'm better than you, or I'm smarter than you, or I'm more enlightened, or you're dumb, or this person's dumb, or this person's good and this person's bad, or this system's good and this system's bad, or your faith is wrong, my faith is right. Nothing to do with any of those things. It's basically all things that we can, each of us, easily observe, and then perhaps ask ourselves, maybe this is not really that true, or maybe this is not really that harmonious. Maybe I can look at this and perhaps have a little bit of enlightenment, maybe see it from a broader perspective, or feel a little bit better, and feel a little bit more empowered, feel a little bit better about ourselves, and really undo some of the conditioning and programming that we've been given by our culture. Which again is so easily observable. Just turn on the TV, just pick up a newspaper, read a magazine. It's just all around us. We're embedded within it. So for that reason, these conversations are important and helpful and useful. Because if we're not aware of it, we're oftentimes just going to be controlled and dominated by it. So hopefully that's been helpful. Good for you if you made it this far in the video. It's rather long, and compared to most of the other content that is just filtered and dumbed down for attention span that's this big, it's really not that exciting, because there's no cuts. There's no 2 seconds then a cut, 2 seconds then a cut, 2 seconds then a cut. Just me talking, being real, being human with you, sharing things that are helpful for me in the hopes and intentions that perhaps might be helpful for you. If not, at least it was entertaining, and perhaps even you like the shirt, which is actually Easy Rider combined with Star Wars, which is pretty funny. So anyways, thanks for watching this video, and I'll talk to you soon.